Disciple by Venerable Buddha. People everywhere say that your path is the way of compassion, a teaching based on love. I have heard this many times and carried this belief. Yet, when I look at life around me, I see people still facing so many difficulties, endless conflicts, deep loneliness, and countless silent burdens. Suffering seems to repeat itself, while the compassion we speak of seems so hard to find when it is needed most. Is it possible that compassion is merely a beautiful ideal, something only to be taught and heard, but very difficult to practice in a world governed by so many complex rules and arrangements? The Buddha. My child, your question touches the core of true practice. You have seen the difficulty of bringing kindness into daily life. Listen to my guidance. If you understand compassion as a transaction, as something grand you must do to change another person's destiny, then you will find it heavy and you will easily become disappointed. This kind of compassion will not last. But listen, my child, I want you to understand that compassion is not a special action. It is a state of being. If compassion is your ability to look at your own suffering and the suffering of others with eyes that do not judge, seeing clearly the truth of impermanence, and if you, in that moment of seeing, do not create any new suffering for yourself or for others, if you can hold on to that stillness, then true compassion is always there. It is not something far away that you need to search for. It is always available, residing right within your accepting and peaceful heart. It is simply waiting for you to unlock that peace. My child, the first thing you must clearly see is the deep confusion that beings often have. They equate loving someone with rescuing them or controlling them. When people see a loved one or anyone else sinking in sorrow, a natural feeling of empathy arises in them. This is a good seed. They want the other person to suffer less. They want to see them happy and peaceful. But then, from that initial goodness, another thought quietly slips in. They must live the way I believe is right in order to be happy. That is the moment the seed of compassion is poisoned by unconscious arrogance. You wanted to save them, but you began by taking away their freedom and their own lessons. You become a conditional savior. You often see others lost or making decisions that, from your perspective, are wrong and will lead to suffering. Your love makes you want to intervene. But you forget that every soul has its own path to learn and to self-liberate. Excessive intervention, even with good intent, becomes a burden, an imposition. Pure kindness is accepting another person's pain without needing to change it immediately. It is a quiet presence. When you carry the intention to save, you stand in a superior position, the position of one who knows everything. You say, "If you do it my way, you will be fine." But true compassion does not require high or low positions. It only requires the equality of the heart. Look at parents who love their children too much. They love them so much that they want to choose their career, their spouse, and even how their child should think. They do everything out of love, but the result is suffocation and rebellion. Why? Because that love turned into destiny making. They want to save their child from falling, but they unintentionally take away the opportunity for their child to learn how to stand up on their own. My child, your duty is not to solve all the problems of others. Your duty is to help them see the light within themselves. You can offer the torch, but you cannot walk the path for them. If you insist that the other person must change their lifestyle, change their habits, change their beliefs for you to feel secure, then that is not compassion. That is a search for your own peace through the change of others. Remember this. To love is to wish for another to be happy in their own way. To save is to force another to be happy in your own way. You must always be mindful to distinguish clearly between these two. so that your compassion remains a pure, flowing spring, not an invisible rope. My child, when the confusion between love and salvation is deeply rooted, it leads to a greater mistake. Love begins to transform into control. Listen well. True compassion is liberation. It loses all its noble meaning the moment kindness is no longer a pure gift, but begins to harbor the desire to claim something back. The thing that people often demand, even unconsciously, is personal gratitude cease and obedience from the recipient. When you help someone, you often expect them to show appreciation. You expect them to live better, to change in the direction you anticipate. When they fail to do so, or when they appear ungrateful, you feel hurt, betrayed. You think, I sacrificed so much. Why are they treating me like this? My child, the very moment you ask that question, why? Your compassion has been ruined. You have turned your help into an invisible debt. You have used kindness to purchase a form of power, the power to control the emotions of others and the power to control their gratitude. True kindness, like the sunlight, shines without demanding that the flower bloom in a specific shape. The sun only gives energy. Whether the flower is grateful or not is the flower's business, not the condition of the sun. When you want to control, you set an invisible trap. You create a psychological bond. The recipient will feel pressure. They may change their behavior to please you, but that is a change born of fear or obligation, not of self-realization. And this false change will never bring them true happiness. Compassion is not a transaction. It is a completely free offering, just like the path I have shown. I teach you because I want you to be free from suffering, not because I expect you to always prostrate to me. If you do not practice, I am not saddened because it is your own path. You need to let go of the desire to see immediate good results from your compassionate actions. Do good because it is your nature. Give because it opens your heart. When you do good and then forget it, no longer looking for any response, then your kindness is completely freed from control. Only when kindness is completely free from expectation can it become true compassion, never placing pressure or burden on the soul of the recipient. My child, listen to this essential teaching about the nature of kindness and the truth of compassion. When you offer help, always question your heart. If your action, even if initially born from the purest intent, unintentionally makes the recipient feel inferior, weak, or inadequate, then you must stop and reflect. If kindness makes others feel small, it is arrogance in the cloak of compassion. You must understand that arrogance is not just seeing oneself as superior, it is also placing yourself in the position of the benefactor and unintentionally pushing the recipient into the position of a beggar or a debtor. When you boast about your greatness, you make others feel small. Compassion never diminishes the dignity of beings. True compassion always respects and uplifts the self-worth of every person. Have you ever seen someone give a gift in a showy manner? They speak loudly of their sacrifice. They recount the difficulties they overcame to help. Their true goal at that moment is not to lessen suffering, but to increase their own self-importance. They want others to see them as a saint. This arrogance, no matter how well hidden, will ultimately cause harm. The recipient, though helped materially, will feel offended or burdened by false gratitude in their soul. When you help, you must help in silence and in equality. Remember, today you are the giver, but tomorrow you may also be the one needing help from another. Giving and receiving is a continuous flow of life. No one remains eternally in a higher position. See helping as lighting another's torch from your own. You do not lose your light, but the other person receives warmth and illumination. It is sharing, not rescuing from above. Only when you completely remove the desire for recognition and the need to prove you are a good person from your actions then that kindness truly becomes compassion, and it will bring lightness, creating no burden for anyone. My child, another very common mistake you often make is confusing compassion with endurance in silence. Many people think that to show compassion, they must tolerate all injustice, must bear all faults, and must remain silent in the face of actions that cause harm from others. They believe that endurance is the highest form of virtue and boundless love. But I tell you, endurance is not compassion. When you choose to be patient and tolerate a wrong action or a sorrow, what are you doing? You are not making the world suffer any less. You are merely shifting the suffering from the perpetrator to yourself, and at the same time, you are hiding the truth. Endurance only makes suffering hidden by a curtain of silence. Your silence in the face of wrong will unintentionally allow that wrong behavior to continue and grow. The person causing the suffering does not receive honest feedback. They do not have the opportunity to reflect and correct themselves. And you, the one enduring, are accumulating resentment and exhaustion deep within your own soul. Compassion does not mean giving up and accepting destruction. True compassion requires wisdom to distinguish between accepting what cannot be changed, like impermanence, sickness, and death, and confronting what needs to be spoken, like injustice, harmful behavior. Silence rooted in endurance is a form of invisible violence you inflict upon yourself. It withers the energy of compassion within you. Compassion is the ability to say no, gently but firmly when necessary. It is standing up to protect your boundaries without resorting to anger or retaliation. You can speak up for truth, for justice, while still maintaining peace in your heart. Remember, you cannot light others with a candle that has been extinguished because it had to endure the storm. Compassion first means protecting and nourishing the light within yourself so that you can truly radiate that light without being depleted. My child, following the teaching on endurance, I want you to see more clearly the harm that good-hearted people often bear. People with gentle hearts often think that to show noble love, they must always place themselves in a lower position, accepting all loss and sacrifice of their personal rights. They believe that yielding everything, sacrificing all personal interests, is the highest expression of compassion. But look at the result. These good-natured people are often worn down and exhausted. They are taken advantage of, deeply hurt, and eventually, their energy to love gradually runs out. Compassion is not self-destruction. If you constantly suffer loss, you will not have enough strength left to help anyone. You cannot drain your well and expect it to keep providing water for everyone. Compassion is not bowing down. It is not blindly accepting injustice or the depletion of yourself. Compassion must go hand in hand with mindfulness. It is the ability to know clearly when to stand tall, to protect the truth, and to protect yourself. Standing tall here does not mean standing up to fight or using anger to retaliate. Standing tall is defining your boundaries with gentle but firm words. When you are treated disrespectfully, if you silently accept it, you have taught others that such behavior is permissible. Conversely, when you use calmness and loving kindness to set boundaries, you not only protect your own peace, but also give the other person a lesson in respect. A truly good person is someone who values themselves, because they understand that their own peaceful well-being is the only source from which compassion can flow. True compassion is a solid mountain, not a weak leaf that the wind blows away. Learn to be firm, so that your love has the strength to support, not the weakness to be crushed. My child, listen as I reaffirm the nature of compassion, so you no longer confuse it with surrender or frailty. I tell you, compassion does not mean weakness. It is the extraordinary strength of one who has fully understood all pain and no longer wishes to inflict pain on any living being. Do you see? The greatest strength in the world is not the ability to defeat others, but the ability to master one's own reactions. A weak person is one controlled by emotions. They are governed by fear, anger, and pride. When they are hurt, they immediately retaliate. When they face danger, they use violence for self-defense. Their actions are unconscious reflexes, lacking self-mastery. Conversely, a person with compassion has achieved the highest self-mastery. They see the pain approaching, they feel the inner agitation, but they have enough space and wisdom to choose. They choose not to create more suffering, they choose not to react by causing harm. This strength does not come from muscles or external power. It comes from the deep understanding that every act of retaliation, every harmful action, ultimately returns to hurt oneself. A person who has realized this truth will naturally let go of all thoughts of revenge or punishment. Like a great rock, it does not need to move or fight the waves, yet it stands firm and solid. That is the strength of stillness, of composure. The person with compassion has the ability to endure the dissatisfaction, misunderstanding, and even the hatred of others, while their heart remains peaceful, uninfected. They are not afraid of the weakness of others. This is the ultimate courage. This strength is not for conquering the world, but for conquering the darkness in one's own soul. When you master your own pain, you will have the strength to face the pain of others with purity and genuine love. My child, look at how this world operates when people face wrongdoings and great sorrows. When an injustice occurs, people immediately stand up and demand justice. They want balance to be established, a fair reckoning for every fault. They want the person who caused the pain to receive equivalent suffering. In this demand, people often forget the essential truth. Justice is built on rules and reciprocity, but justice has no heart. People want fairness through retaliation. They think that by inflicting pain on the one who caused pain, they will heal themselves and make the world better. But the truth is, retaliation only creates an unending cycle of hatred and harm. Suffering is doubled, never eliminated. True compassion is different. Compassion does not take sides. It does not say that one person is right and the other is wrong, or that the perpetrator deserves more punishment than the victim. Compassion sees that both sides, the inflictor and the endured, are suffering in different ways. Why? Because suffering has no boundaries. The one who inflicts pain is also controlled by ignorance, by greed and anger, and that is a kind of deep suffering. Compassion sees and accepts the suffering of all without distinction. Compassion does not deny the need for order or law, but it adds understanding to it. It seeks liberation for all beings, even those who have erred. When you do not take sides, you will not be caught in the battle of right and wrong. You focus only on calming the fire of suffering. You see that the only way to truly achieve peace is not through punishment, but by planting the seeds of understanding and unconditional love. That is how compassion stands above and encompasses all worldly laws. My child, listen to where true compassion truly begins to blossom in the soul. Throughout life, people live in a clear division between me and the them. Me is the one I care about, me is my side, and them are strangers, opponents, people who do not deserve my attention. This distinction is the root of all conflict and the limit of kindness. Ordinary kindness is often confined to that small circle. You are willing to help family, friends, those who share your views. True compassion does not accept that division. It begins where you completely let go of the need to prove that you are right and others are wrong. When you try to prove you are right, you are nourishing your ego. You want to stand higher. But compassion does not need to win any argument. Compassion sees the suffering of others and realizes that suffering is no different from the pain you have experienced or will experience. This realization breaks down the wall between me and them. My child, when you help someone not because they are good to you, not because they are on your side, but simply because they are a being who is suffering, at that moment you have touched the boundary of unconditional compassion. Practice seeing everyone you meet as if they were yourself in a different circumstance. This empathy is the foundation for your kindness to expand, no longer limited by prejudice, race, or religion. Compassion is the absolute acceptance that we are all in the same boat. When you no longer want to defeat them, you have defeated selfishness within yourself. My child, an important aspect of compassion that few people see is the courage to leave at the right time. In the human mind, helping often goes hand in hand with having to stay forever, having to carry the responsibility to the end. They think leaving is heartless. But I tell you, an overly prolonged presence can spoil both the helper and the helped. To help and stay is attachment. To leave at the right time is true love. Say, when you stay too long, you unintentionally create dependence. You take away the opportunity for the other person to develop their own inner strength. You make them forget that they are capable of standing on their own and solving their own problems. You have stripped them of their autonomy with too much kindness. Moreover, when you stay, you are also creating depletion for yourself. Your energy source will be exhausted, and your kindness can turn into frustration and weariness. When you feel frustrated, your action is no longer compassion. True compassion is giving them the seed and the water, but then you must step back and let their own sunlight shine on it. You trust in the seed's ability to grow on its own. Leaving at the right time is an act of deep respect. It is an unspoken affirmation. I trust you. I know you are strong enough to continue this journey alone. Learning to let go of the outcome, to let go of indefinite responsibility, is how you liberate both yourself and others. Only when there is no attachment can love become light, free, and pure. My child, this relates to how people react to the suffering of others with emotions. When they see someone weeping, people often think that to show sympathy, they must cry with them. They must immerse themselves in that sorrow. They mistake emotional empathy for the peak of compassion. But look at me. I often simply sit still. I look directly at the sorrow without being swept away by it. I know that tears of sympathy, however sincere, can never save anyone. Tears are merely the expression of emotion. They may lighten the burden of the one crying, but they do not solve the root of the problem. If I also sink into sadness, who will be the guide? Only correct understanding can dissolve suffering. Compassion is not pity, it is profound empathy. Pity is when you feel sorry for them and are submerged by their emotions. Profound empathy is when you clearly understand the deep cause of that sorrow, while your mind remains calm. That calmness is the foundation for you to offer the most insightful and right kind of help. When you cry with them, you become part of the problem. You lose the overall perspective. You are no longer the guiding lighthouse. Your duty is to share your peace, not to share their chaos. Sit still, listen with an open heart, and let the clarity and insight within you help them find the light. My child, you always look for great deeds to call compassion, giving alms, building temples, rescuing others. These are good actions, but they are still external. I want you to understand a much deeper form of compassion. Compassion is no longer action, but presence. What is presence? It is the ability to sit beside a person who is in pain, who is desperate, without needing to say a single word. You do not need to seek solutions or offer advice. You simply need to be there completely. When you are truly present, you give the other person the most precious gift: unconditional acceptance. They feel seen, heard not by the ear, but by your peaceful silence. Sometimes, sitting beside a person in pain without saying anything is the deepest way to love. Your presence is like a steady vessel holding their chaos. You allow the suffering to be expressed, to flow, without fear. You are not drawn into their storm, but you also do not turn away. This is the hardest thing, because the human mind always wants to fill the silence with words or actions. But you must learn to trust the power of stillness. Your stillness contains understanding, and it automatically radiates peace to others. Let go of the need to do something. Just be someone. Be a source of peaceful energy. That is the peak of sharing. It is infinite compassion. My child, I have made this clear, and you must always engrave it in your mind. True compassion is not born of pity. It is born from clearly knowing that I, too, have suffered like them. Pity is an emotion easily generated. It carries the scent of superiority. When you pity someone, you are looking down on them. You think they are weak, and you are luckier. This creates a distance, a wall between you and them. This distance is an obstacle to compassion. True compassion must be based on oneness and equality. You must see the similarity between yourself and others. When you see a person suffering, you do not need to ask, "Why are they so bad?" Instead, you ask, "Have I ever felt this pain? Have I ever been lost like them?" You will realize that, although the forms of suffering are different, the essence of being hurt, being afraid, and experiencing loss is the same. This understanding breaks down the ego. It brings you down to the same ground as the other person. You are no longer the benefactor, but a fellow traveler on the path of suffering. It is the realization that I am them, and they are me, that opens the door to boundless compassion. Love at this point is no longer charity, but recognition. When you look at your enemy and see the ignorance and fear that are tormenting them, you will no longer feel anger. You see the suffering that you have also carried. This is the most solid source, the place where compassion is born and nurtured. My child, a great gift that compassion brings is liberation. True compassion will set people completely free. What is freedom here? People often live in bondage to the desire to change others. You want your spouse to be less angry. You want your children to be successful. You want the world to be fair. When they do not act according to your wishes, you feel disappointed, angry, and hurt. You have placed the key to your happiness in someone else's hands. True compassion is different. It teaches you to accept all things, all events, and all people as they are. Because when you no longer want to change anyone, you can no longer be hurt by anyone. Hurt only happens when an expectation is broken. If you do not expect others to behave in a certain way, their actions cannot touch the peace within you. Compassion is the ability to love without needing to possess. You help without needing a result. You accept this world with all its chaos and imperfection. When you let go of the desire to control others, you simultaneously let go of the shackles binding yourself. You become independent of judgment, independent of recognition, and independent of everyone's actions. This is absolute freedom. Compassion frees you from the role of the victim, frees you from anger, and brings you back to the natural peace of your soul. Live with compassion, and you will be the freest person in this world. My child, this question is a challenge posed by every era. People always want to measure everything by utility, by efficiency, by visible value. When the world asks me, what use is compassion in this age of turbulence and competition? I will answer them simply. It has no specific utility at all. It will not make you richer, nor help you defeat your enemies faster. It only keeps human beings human. In an age where everything is automated, every relationship becomes a transaction, and people are gradually losing their essence. They are turned into machines pursuing goals, no longer feeling deep connection. Compassion is the only thing that holds on to human dignity. It is the reminder that you are not just a mechanism for survival. You are a being capable of feeling, understanding, and loving. Compassion is not a tool to achieve a goal. It is the goal itself. It is the highest expression of conscious life. Without compassion, human beings will become cruel and withered. They will destroy each other and destroy themselves in the spiral of calculation and greed. So, the greatest utility of compassion is that it preserves the sacred nature and kindness in the human soul. It keeps the warm fire burning so that human beings do not become cold blocks of ice. That is all it needs to do. The Buddha looks at the disciple and smiles. My child, your journey of understanding compassion has come to an end. Carry these teachings and practice them in every breath. You have seen that compassion is not something you must strain yourself to do, but the letting go of all desire to control and possess. Look back at this final teaching. It holds the entire essence of the path. The truest compassion is not doing good deeds, but not letting your own kindness become a burden for anyone in this world. Compassion is not an action, but a state of understanding. Understand so as not to judge. See so as not to resent. And be silent so as not to create more suffering. True compassion is always light, like air, like light. It offers liberation and freedom. It comes like a cool breeze and leaves no trace. When you do good without needing anyone to know, without needing anyone to repay, without needing anyone to change, then you have attained unconditional compassion. Your heart will become light and serene. My child, begin practicing today. Let go of expectations. Love with acceptance, and you will find that you yourself are the one most liberated by your own compassion. Go in peace.